Okay, folks, welcome back to the Reg.A Money Show. We're in part 2 here, and Miguel, this is going to be a great topic for all these contenders out there. What do they got to do?
Yeah, so now, you know what, and I think the contenders should know this, and I think that also, you know, the qualifiers, you know, they can speak to this too, because, you know, they've gone through this process, Ron. And what does the process involve? You know, you hear about, you know, I want to get this offering done. I want to raise 10, 15, 20, $50 million. And if you're trying to raise that type of capital and you're trying to get that access to the capital markets, what are some of the things that you need to have in your offering? And those are the things that we talk about. But, you know, wipe aside for just a minute. You got to have the crowd. You have to have the infinity group. You got to have the audit. You got to, you know, all those things that we always talk about when we talk about building a Reg.A plus offering tier 2, right? So now we're just talking about a very specific part of this Reg.A. And these, of course, these are opinions only, guys. And Ron and I have always encouraged all of you, that when you go through this process to back yourself up with a great PCAOB auditor, and we've had plenty of them on the show that you guys can feel comfortable with, and also you have to have great SEC counsel. You got to have a securities attorney standing next to you, taking you all the way through the process. But this is the Reg.A Money Show's breakdown, okay? The breakdown of the Form A1. You got to have, the important things that you got to have is you got to have the right price. You got to have the right price for your stock. You got to have the right offering. The very first page tells the entire story. We are offering 1 million shares at $10, you know, because of our valuation, or we believe that our technology, you know, is second to none. And the story is going to be developed from there. So you don't want to overprice your stock, but you also don't want to undersell your stock either. You don't want to go in too low and too high of a number, right? So you got to have that right balance, and that's going to be determined by the valuation of the company. You know, either, you know, valuation done through, you know, your sale, or, you know, when you look at your comparables and you look at your factors and how many different other companies are in your same industry. So there's a lot of different factors that are going to go into this type of pricing. Now, you also are going to want to have a very strong MD&A, a very strong MD&A in the sense that manager's discussion and analysis. Now, this is where you kind of break down the company, where you actually describe the company out to the investor, where you start to develop your story. Why do you set yourself apart from everybody else? Why are you not a Me Too company? Because we get that a lot. Ron and I get that. I'm like this company, or I'm like that company, or I could be like this company. No, man. Why do you distinguish yourself? Why are you not a Me Too company? What makes you different? What makes you stand out among everybody else? And not only does it matter how you stand out among everybody else, Ron, but I also believe that there's a missing element here. And the missing element is, you know, what is the solution that you are proposing to solve? What is that issue out there, okay, that you've identified that you feel is being underserved or not being served whatsoever? And then what are you bringing to the table? Where is that distinction being made in your business plan that distinguishes your solution among everybody else's, right? And how do you distinguish yourself among everybody else's solution? Is one, how you developed it, two, how you've protected it, or how you are able to deliver it. You know, there's a lot of different nuances that you need to work through to kind of figure that out. So you have your offering, you have your stock price, you have your amount of shares that you're issuing, you have your MD&A. You know, I would say that you would have to have your financials properly footnoted and properly represented, you know, with the opinion letter of counsel and the opinion letter of the PCAOB. But another thing that a lot of people, kind of look back on and say, yeah, we could have done a little bit better on that is the risk factors, Ron. The risk factors on a company are going to be a list of all the factors that could potentially be a risk to this type of investment. And now here's where the company wants to come out and kind of tell people, look, these are the risk factors that are associated with our company. These risk factors could potentially be a risk to our business plan. And you want to be able to spell those out. But you know what? And if people always think of risk factors as like a side note or just like another note to the offering, I would really encourage people to kind of look at those risk factors and find the solution and how your delivery of your solution, of your product, of your service, and how your company is going to address those risk factors, and how you kind of, the risk factors are out there, and how do you back yourself out of those risk factors? How do you mitigate the risk in those risk factors? That's very important, Ron, because a lot of these people are looking at these risk factors, and I don't know if you've read some risk factors, but man, they'll tell you that the sky is falling, and this company that promised to hold up all the clouds, says, well, the software that we use to hold up all the clouds, could not operate if we don't have the proper electricity. Okay?
Right. Yeah,
so,
exactly. Right.
It's crazy. It's just crazy the amount of, but it has to be there, okay? And the reason that you have to have risk factors is because you have to protect the investors, and you have to disclose to the investors any possibility there may be out there for risk, okay? But also think of those risk factors as an opportunity to engage the shareholder or the investor, the potential investor, of how you are going to mitigate some of those risk factors, okay? So the right financials, so you got your MD&A, okay, you got your opinion letters from counsel and from your PCAOB, you have your risk factors, and then also, under the sections that describes the businesses, besides management discussion and analysis and discussion, there's also an opportunity for you not to oversell the company, because, I've read a lot of A1s that are done by marketing guys, and that have a real strong marketing aspect, and it sells too much. And what I mean by selling too much is that you have the gold, okay? You have the solution. So what you're really trying to do is you're not trying to sell the idea, because you're not selling it to your customers. You're actually trying to inform and distinguish yourself among others, or how your solution differentiates itself from everything else, and why your technology or your product or your idea stands to deliver on its business plan, Ron. And it doesn't have to be, like a big marketing, aspect. Yeah, I mean, you could put how you market the company and how you're going to develop sales channels. And I think all those things are very important, okay? But it's not a sell. It's more of an informative, information presentation, okay, to allow these investors or potential investors to be able to read and educate themselves, and provide them with enough information so they can go out and do some due diligence and back up the information that you've presented, so that way you can bring them into the fold, right? Because you don't want to sell them on an idea and then not deliver that idea, because then, of course, you're going to have buyer's remorse. And that's the last thing that you want to have. You want to be able to build and have your investors have confidence in your business plan. You want to plan, give them a sense of information, so that way they get a sense of not only confidence, but that they have now understood.
Yeah.
In regards to your industry, right?
Yeah, and Miguel, I think a lot of those times too, when you do these and you disclose the risk and you do your marketing, you really should be as forthright as possible, because if you're trying to pull the wool over people's eyes with less information, then you shouldn't be doing it in a Reg.A to begin with then.
No, that's right, Ron. And that's the kind of thing that I was trying to get to, man. Because you can be a great salesperson and then, like overpromise the world and then not deliver anything or under-deliver on your promises. That's why it's very important when you are considering the Reg.A that you have to bring a concise message as part of that Reg.A. And talking about concise messages, I think, Ron, here on the Reg.A Money Show with me, Miguel Dotres, and you, Ron Costa, I think that we bring a real concise message to our listeners. And I think that's why you're seeing, the questions that you're seeing, the calls that we're getting, the inquiries that we're getting, Ron, because people appreciate the concise message. They appreciate not being talked down to, but they appreciate getting the information and allowing them to appreciate that so they can get the whole breadth and scope of the entire topic, so that way they can go out and find their own pieces of their truth, so that way they can bring something to themselves and say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense to me, or you know what, I really understand that because of this and this, and because they have the opportunity to do that. And I think, Ron, that what we're doing here on the Reg.A Money Show, that's a lot of concise information that we're bringing to people, and I'm very proud to do this with you, my friend. And we're going to continue to do it because we're bringing the message of Reg.A to everybody, and to all the businesses that are looking to access the capital markets. And not only that, but I think investors are really appreciating it too, because they're kind of getting the inside information on these companies, Ron. So I think we're serving a lot of people with this. So I really feel good about it.
Yeah, same here. I agree. And one of the takeaways I'd like to just go over real quickly based on what you were just talking about was this process obviously doesn't happen overnight. I mean, you don't wake up one day and say, okay, I'm going to follow a Reg.A tomorrow. There's a lot of thought behind all this, and to do everything that you just talked about, my God, I mean, what are you looking at on a time frame like this? It's not something that happens very quickly, especially if you want to put a lot of thought into it.
Oh yeah, Ron, you're talking about, there's a due diligence period. You gotta vet out the PCAOBs. You gotta vet out the attorneys. You gotta vet out, the platforms. You gotta vet out, all the things that are involved in this. And besides that, Ron, you gotta remember, you still gotta run your business. That's why you're gonna need somebody to kind of help you through this and kind of quarterback you through the entire process. You're going to want to have somebody who can stand next to you and kind of make sure that, the auditors are on track, that the attorneys are on track, somebody to kind of manage this or quarterback this thing, so that way you can still focus on, because, these people are running very successful businesses, and you just can't stop everything you're doing because, we're going to go public. Woohoo! You know what I'm saying? There's a lot here that has to be managed and done, Ron. And listen, the best CEOs and the best presidents of companies, are masters of their fields. But when they get into this access of this capital markets, a lot of them are overwhelmed, Ron, because there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of moving parts, okay? And us breaking it down for people, I think they appreciate that, because they get a really good understanding of what each piece of the puzzle represents to them, and how they use each and every piece and each and every tool that we provide for them, how they're going to use that tool and how it fits in the puzzle of, the access to the capital markets, using a Reg.A plus Tier 2 offering.
Yeah, wow. Well, I'll tell you what, that's a ton of information for today's show. I'm hoping everybody heeds your words there and understands what you're talking about, because everyone has to know this from a Reg.A perspective, especially if you're a Reg.A contender. And Miguel, you deserve a beer for this one today. Good job.
Yeah, it's a good one, man. Let's go and we'll close this thing off. We'll head over to our favorite drinking watering hole, and we really do mean it. So if you were, we're going to send you something. You guys are getting this. You're listening to this on the iHeartRadio or iTunes or Amazon or Stitcher, Spreaker. All these great platforms that the Reg.A Money Show is presented on. You got to write us in and say, hey, Miguel, Ron, I was listening to the show in blank degree weather, okay? And the person who comes in at the lowest is going to get something from us, Ron. Let's make sure we make something